Today we begin by remembering those who have served our country and laid down their lives fighting for our freedom.
Among them, Lieutenant John C. Kelly from Garland, Tennessee. Lieutenant Kelly was a bombardier during World War II and was killed in a plane crash.
And now, more than 60 years later, his family, like many, many others, are still trying to get his remains back home. And we welcome Leslie Roan, who is his great niece. So he was your grandfather's or grandmother's brother?
My grandfather's brother. That's
Okay.
right, my dad's father.
Tell us a little bit, Leslie, about your uncle. Who was he? What made him such a unique individual?
He was a very personable person. He just had a very warm disposition, had a beautiful smile, and he was very athletic. Went to college on a football scholarship, and just well-rounded, likable. He was the 9th of 11 children,
Wow.
so you know, he knew what hard times meant sometimes.
I'm
but
sure.
they were a very close-knit family, and they all loved each other very much.
He went to war, and in 1943, was his plane shot down, and he was badly, badly burned.
Yes, that's correct. He was flying a mission over Burma, and his plane was shot down. 8 of the 10 survived the crash, but most of the 8 died from the severe burns while they were in the POW camp.
Right, because he was in a POW camp for only about a month before.
Right, he
got
lived
no
about
treatment,
a month. Right, they got very little treatment. There were 2 British doctors that were in the POW camp that helped take care of them, and without them they would have died, you know, within a week, and several of them did. But he lived about a month, was the last one of his crew to die. 2 went on to survive and return to the United States and live long, productive lives.
Right.
But he died December of 1943.
What about attempts and efforts to bring remains back to the United States? Where did all this initially begin?
Well, after the war was over in 1946, the American Graves Registration Service sent a team to the Rangoon area, and they exhumed 39 bodies from the POW camp and local cemeteries, and they put them on board a C-47 to bring them back to the United States so that they could be buried with their families. On May 17, 1946, that plane crashed during a storm. And many attempts were made, hours, you know, I think it was something like 300, 400 hours were spent trying to recover this plane, but they never found it. And so it sat unknown to Americans for over 6 decades.
Wow.
And then it was just discovered by an American mountaineer. His name's Clayton Cools from Prescott, Arizona, and he does this as somewhat of a hobby, but it's turned into you know, more productive line of work for him. So,
What was your family's reaction when you heard that he had identified the plane? He pulled the serial number off, so you knew it was the plane.
Right.
What was your reaction as a family?
We were very, very excited, for one, but cautious. You know, first of all, you know that the plane is out there and it's possible, but you don't want to get your hopes up too much. To recover a plane of this magnitude, it's a very lengthy process. You have to work through an organization called JPAC, which is a military organization that stands for Joint Prisoners of War and Missing Accounting Command, and that they work for all of the military branches. They do like a CSI investigation and a archaeological dig to bring these remains back.
To make sure that the DNA is
right,
checked.
and then they identify it through DNA, yes.
Wow.
So it's a very lengthy process, and you have to get a lot of clearance through the government. This particular crash site is in India, so you'd have to get clearance through the Indian government, so they're working on negotiations with that. So,
And Leslie, this is also a story about families,
That's
such
right.
as yours.
That's right.
Why have you also aggressively and passionately done this? Because you have been relentless, to say the
Yes,
least. This is
yes.
something you want to see through, is it?
Yes, and there are a lot of other families out there that feel the exact same way as we do. A lot of their families also have researchers that have found interest and are trying to bring this plane home as well. It's not just my family, but it's 50 families across the United States. They span over 20 different states. So it's a national effort to bring this plane home.
And that's just for that one plane. The website
Right.
talks about 78,000 World War II
That's correct.
lost soldiers or airmen or missing personnel. 78,000.
That is
who
amazing.
are
That's-
not yet put to rest here.
Right, and JPAC says that about 35,000 of those are possibly recoverable, which means that they probably are on land sites. The rest maybe sunken in the ocean. But it is amazing that they're still out there, and that there are military organizations out there to bring these men home. You know, that they're not forgotten. Even though they're lost, they're not forgotten, and that's very important for us to remember, especially on Memorial Day.
That it is. The recovery effort, though, not the easiest task.
No, absolutely not. They will have to have a specialized team to go in and recover this effort and recover the plane. And even after if they are able to recover the bodies, it takes a long, lengthy process of the DNA identification. The villagers at this particular crash site say that there were many, many bodies scattered among the wreckage, and they took those bodies and took them up to the village, and on a hill buried them in a centralized location. They had been converted to Christianity several years before the war, so it was miraculous that they didn't burn the bodies, you know, because Indian traditions usually dictate that they burn
And every year the villagers go and honor these men.
That's correct, yes. They hold a little memorial service in January of each year.
Do you think your uncle would be extremely proud of what you and the rest of your family
I would hope so.
doing?
I hope they all would be proud. I hope all these men would be proud of their grandchildren or great nieces and nephews for carrying on and trying to bring them back home.
And it's urgent not to forget this group particularly, because World War II veterans, we are losing them every day.
We are. Through my research, I have, found many, people that I was searching for that have just passed away in the last few years. And my aunt, John's sister, is still alive. She lives in Marion, Arkansas, and we would love to bring his remains home so that she could see closure with this effort. And we are working against the clock, because she's, like I said, she's 90, and every second counts. We need to get these guys home.
Sure. Leslie, we do appreciate you sharing your story, your uncle's story.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
And we'll have more on this story later today on News Channel 3.
Okay.